says, get that India. Big boy.
Call an ambulance! Maybe call a police! Oh, what a shot! What a shot! Campbell killer!
Hello and welcome back to the instant reaction edition of the Tip Sheet podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me to break down, a game that really encapsulates the madness of the season that is 2023 is my good mate Sixties. I mean, we joked about it. We lightheartedly predicted it, but the Eels certainly went above and beyond and surpassed any expectations, however optimistic we might have labelled or bestowed upon them, Sixties, in their 36-16 win over the South Sydney Rabbitohs tonight.
Mate, how good was that win? That was just the most amazing victory that I've seen for some time from the Parramatta Eels. It was probably right up there in terms of against the odds with that win over the Cowboys up in North Queensland in the preliminary final last year.
Fair shout, yeah.
Just with having to turn the momentum of the game in the second half, players missing from the starting team, players going off injured and not being able to come back on, players out of position with the not having any back rowers left. It was just it was just a great win. We couldn't have asked more from the Eels, and I'm going to continue saying what I've been saying, which is I can argue that we are playing more consistent football in 2023 than we were in 2022, and I think not only does the differential prove that, it's also a match like this against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who we know have been the real bogey team, the genuine bogey team for the Eels. And yeah, Parramatta's unfortunately been finding a way to lose, and we've been complaining about how they find a way to lose. But I'm still saying the football that they've been playing is arguably more consistent than it was last year.
Yeah, you come into this game, sans Reagan Campbell-Gillard and Sean Lane, two, top-tier forwards, representative calibre forwards. 5 minutes into this game, you lose Andrew Davey to a HIA, which I couldn't really catch it on the replay, Sixties, but I think it was a head knock with Campbell Gray. Yeah, it was a head collision there. And it just happened so quickly. And then at halftime, after what felt like the first set, Reagan Campbell-Gillard, Ryan Madison hobbles off with a calf injury. And that's something to monitor for sure, because we all know calf injuries can be a real bugger to deal with. But, down two players in this game up against the best team in the competition this year. And not just that, but the best team in the competition, and a team that in the last 3 years has absolutely wiped the floor with you. And the Eels stood tall. South Sydney scored, one try was Junior getting reefed of the ball by Latrell Mitchell in a heads-up play from Latrell off a intercept from Junior. Then we had the last one, which was just a miscount of numbers from the scrum. And then the second one, which was at the end of the first half when they ran the ball in the last, which was not like there's no non-legit tries, but that was probably the most conventional of their 3 tries scored. Yeah, the Eels really stood tall in this one, mate. They played the sort of physical football we've been begging them to get back to. And it's amazing how a little bit of physicality in offense, but way more so in defense, suddenly sharpens up everything else for the team.
Oh, mate, look, there's going to be so much that we're going to be able to talk about in the way of positive contributions from the Eels. I'm going to throw to you in a moment just for the stats. But before we do that, a big shout out to our sponsors. That's Big Swing Golf at Northmead and Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. As we always say, if we didn't have our sponsors, basically the Cumberland Throw wouldn't exist as it does now.
Keeps the lights on.
Big thanks to our sponsors.
Exactly.
And, mate, I'm going to throw to you for the main stats.
Let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. Parramatta Eels 36, defeating the South Sydney Rabbitohs 16. That's the Darug and Parramatta Eels and the Yora and Gaggle Rabbitohs in Indigenous round. And it was the first time this year that Souths have been held under 20 points, I think, 60s. Was it? No, it was that, or they haven't conceded hadn't conceded 20 points. So
I think, well, I don't know. I haven't followed that stat, but they were averaging only something like about 13 points a game against them, or maybe 15 points a game. It was something really,
yeah,
really
they've
minute.
been held under 20. So the Rabbitohs lost to the Panthers 16-10 and then 2018. So no, that stat they gave on Fox is a lie. But they've been pretty good. So to bleed that many points against us is the first time this season, I think, to bleed over. Oh yeah, I see what they're saying. They haven't bled over 20 points this season, and so there you go. We're the first team to crack the 2-0 on them. So very, very good stuff there from the Parramatta Eels. But let's get into the scorers sheet. We start with the Eels. Well, I went Mike Acevo, but it was the other edge for FTS 60. Sean Russell scoring a really nice try there, beating Latrell on that narrow blind side, cutting back in to plant the ball down. He was joined on the scorers sheet by Bowie Simonson, who had a very good game, bagged a double in the end. Bryce Cartwright, Dillbags, and Will Penasini. For the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Alex Johnston, well, he always has a way of finding the try line, got 2 and was prevented from getting an early first by the boot of Quinton Gufferson. And then Campbell Graham scoring, uncontested from that scrum win early in the second half. Mitchell Moses made a sparkling return from his 1 week off with a 6 from 6 night off the tee. Latrell 2 from 3. And the Eels also missing a 2-point field goal attempt at the end of the first half. Eels dominating possession in this one, 60s. It's been a long time since I feel like we've said that. But 57% to 43% for the blue and gold. Time of possession, about 8.5 minutes, 8 minutes 40 in their favour. Completion rates for both teams in the mid-70s. 73% for Parramatta, 75% for South Sydney. So well down on what we expected you needed to do to beat Souths. But we spoke about this in our losses, when you're converting those offensive KPIs, your line breaks, your tackle breaks, your offloads into points, suddenly your completion rates can have a little bit of a wiggle room to be, back in more realistic, I suppose, margins. But then coming into this game, you spoke about how strong South Sydney were on the ground. The Eels outran them to the tune of nearly 400 metres in terms of all-purpose metres, 170 plus in post-contact, 5 line breaks to 4. So we knew that South Sydney could pose a potent attacking threat in this game, and the Eels had to match them, and they just got ahead there. 32 tackle breaks, though, for Parramatta to South Sydney's 21. That one's a bit of a surprise. Eels been struggling defensively. South Sydney are really strong in attack. So for the Eels to come on top here really speaks to the tone of their physicality in this contest. And this is one we have to wait and see on the update 60s, because this was like a carbon copy of round 11 versus the Raiders. Play the ball speed in a game where the Eels were so strong in the ruck and had plenty of attacking threats on both sides. Guess what our average play the ball speed was?
I'll go for a rough, something like 4.01 seconds.
4.01 seconds. South Sydney, an absolutely lightning fast 3.24 by comparison. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out in the wash. But, geez, very, very interesting there. Eels dominated the offloads 16-5. I think Jermaine Hopgood was good for about half of those 60s. He had a very, very good first half before getting kicked out to the edge, working the emergency shift on the left there. And then we go down to kick defusal. Eels pretty good in that regard, 67%. And then the ones they didn't defuse were, I think, spoiled ball by South, which were mostly knock-ons. Defensive, effective tackle rate. This is the one I've been waiting weeks and weeks and rounds for. Parramatta finally over 90% in the game, 60s. The big 9-0-2-3. Big game there from the Eels. South Sydney a tick under 85% effective tackle rate. Only 21 missed tackles for the Eels, 9 ineffective tackles. So 30 combined missed ineffective tackles there. Very, very good. And then we get to negative plays. 11 errors apiece for both teams. And then in the end, the penalties blew out a fair bit towards against South Sydney. There was some late calls in the second half there. But Klein called a very, very fast, very open game. Very un-Klein-like game in most parts, but maybe a tune-up for State of Origin for him. That was more akin to an Origin game there in terms of the tempo and the flow.
Yeah. 6 penalties to 1. Wouldn't we have loved something like that last week? And look, if you're a South Sydney supporter, you might be a little bit dirty on that penalty count, but some of the penalties towards the end were pretty straightforward, like offside penalties, where the ball's tapped forward to
off
another
that
player.
kickoff,
So,
exactly. So they're the ones that, and it happens to every team. They pump the stats one way or the other. But yeah, in this one, I think it was 3-1 penalties right deep into that contest in the second half before a couple of them sort of blew it out in that regard.
Yeah. So, look, what can you say about that game, mate? Except that was what we've been waiting to see in terms of the Eels playing for 80 minutes. That was an 80-minute performance that they put in there. I said to you after the training the other night about how sharp Parramatta looked in attack, the NRL team, but I prefaced of course the proviso of that was
it a function of going against the reserve grade roster, or was it the first grade has just been really on point, and signs now point towards the latter? And
the two players that I said looked absolutely killer in the training session, who a lot of the line breaks were coming from, was Brown and Moses.
Yeah.
And what do you know?
Yeah, lo and behold, they had 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 games today.
Yeah, and it was, they were real. I can't emphasize enough just how sharp that they did look at training. And of course, I don't go and do training reports during the season because it would be giving away what they looked like, what they were working on through the week. But it was one of the sharper training sessions that I'd seen for some time, just simply because of how their attack was humming. It was, of course, the thing that I was concerned about was they probably didn't do as much defensive work during the opposed session because of the fact that they were dominating the possession so much, to the extent that basically they had to stop the flow of the game and give a bit of possession to the New South Wales Cup team to give the NRL boys a bit of defensive practice.
I got bad news for the Cup boys. Moving forwards, you're not getting the ball.
Yeah, but of course the great thing was that the New South Wales Cup team produced a win against the South Sydney Rabbitohs earlier tonight to the tune of 26-16. So they had a nice turnaround in form against the Rabbitohs. And look, it didn't surprise me with Jake Arthur being back there for the New South Wales Cup team this week. So a lot of the play comes through him. So it wasn't really a surprise when he's back there managing the game. So the feedback that I've had so far is that he had a very, very good game. So we'll try and catch some footage on that tomorrow. But back to the NRL game, mate. You've just gone through some of the stats, and I'd like to highlight some of the Eels stats in terms of the individual players, because I think there were some great contributors, and it's going to make it very, very hard for us to come up with a 3-2-1 tonight. I think the players who, from the eye test, I've already rattled off a couple of players in both of the halves. Junior Paulo, after a bit of a slow start to the game. Boy, what about those run meters?
The first half had me really concerned because it was more of the same. It was ball playing before playing tough. He got picked off by Latrell on that critical one-on-one strip, and it looked like he was sort of playing within himself. But in that second stanza, wow. You talk about tone setters. That is exactly what we want for your big man right there. Playing north-south, letting the opportunities of ball play come because you are an absolute sledgehammer in the ruck.
Now let's also now highlight Wiremu Greg. 50 minutes on the field, 200 run meters, 87 post contact. That matches up with Junior, who played 73 minutes, so big minutes there for Junior. 198 run meters, 98 post contact. That was what really stood out in a big way for me. Also a big tick there for Ofahiki Ogden. I thought he was very, very
well.
Good
when you're down 2 pigs, you need all your middles to stand up, and obviously Junior with a absolutely Herculean 73 minutes, and obviously Woody too. But when you have your depth guys like Ogden and Makatoa going for big, triple-digit scores, 139 metres from just 12 carries for Ogden, 164 from 15 for Makatoa. So again, you're balancing production with efficiency here. When you're going at a per run rate of over 10 metres, it's a good run or good set of runs for a middle. And
it was probably the most productive run meters that we've had from some of the outside backs there, where we had Will Penasini, 149 run meters, Bailey Simonson, 177. I thought apart from that mix-up defensively off the scrum, he was very, very strong out there tonight.
Up against the form centre of the competition too.
Yeah, Sean Russell, 152 run meters. But, mate, Dylan Brown, I said from the eye test, he and Mitch Moses, but 140 run meters there. His play tonight was just sensational. We've had the commentators waxing lyrical about his performance, but he was just he's talks about himself as a bit of a space cadet, which basically says that, maybe his focus could be better. He was focused for 80 minutes of football out there tonight, and it's often said, and I've had that from, within the camp as well, that he plays his best when he's got Sean Lane playing alongside him. And without Sean Lane tonight, well, he didn't need him talking all through the game and keeping him focused. He was very, very focused tonight. That was one of the best all-round performances we've seen from Dylan Brown. He's really warming into this season. No matter how the team is going, you'd have to say that the last 5-6 weeks from Dylan Brown have been outstanding after what was a relatively slow start to the season.
And it's very, very easy to forget, given how much NRL he's played for the Eels. He's still one of the youngest playmakers in the game. So, we haven't seen anywhere near his best yet. We haven't seen the full development of his repertoire of attacking skills. So, very, very exciting stuff there. And, a reminder of just how good he is and how physical and dominant he can be. South's had no answer for him tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what for you was the best try of the match?
Oh. Geez, I'm just trying to think. I really liked. I always love when a Mitchell Moses short side play comes off. He's so good at executing them. So the Sean Russell try immediately jumps to mind. But Bowie Simonson's first down that left edge, where we finally had someone backing up Dylan on that half sort of break he makes, was very good in Madison. I think maybe the one that was most impressive, and maybe the most important one, was Dillbag's 71st try. That was the one that really put the game beyond doubt, because we know that South can come back and score a couple of tries in a short window. So even with 11 minutes on the clock, when we sort of went into that possession, I was still like, man, we got the 8-point lead, but I don't feel comfortable here. And the fact that, he just gave hot pursuit on a kick from Moses that was probably just slightly overcooked, and it was just a pure effort play to turn that from a 7-tackle set into a game-winning try. That's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah, and look, that's probably a fair call. I think I've got a lot of time for that one. That try that, as you mentioned, was scored by Bailey Simonson from the Dylan Brown offload to Ryan Madison. Where I really appreciated that, let's say the pulchritude of that try, was the simple execution when Madison got through and he kept his composure and he had the choice inside or outside. Either way would have been fine, but he just kept that composure. And Simonson, as I said, we had the backing up on the inside or the outside, two fast men, Moses inside, Bailey Simonson outside. We've seen a couple of matches against Newcastle in particular where we left a lot of tries out there on the field that we didn't convert the line breaks into the 4-pointers, but that was just executed to perfection. So that's probably probably what I think was the best try of the night. Now I'm going to ask you, what was your turning point in the match?
Well, after a really, really strong first half where the Eels had been the better team by some margin, I feel like, in all the key exchanges, and then bleeding that last gasp try, and nearly 2 tries as well, because it's easy to forget, but Souths had that line breakdown on right edge where they kicked inside, and there was about 8 bunnies around the ball, and it managed to break away from them. Coming into the second half, I was a bit concerned, and we bled that first try to Campbell Graham. So I think I want to give a shout out to Josh Hodgson for the big kick pressure on Lachlan Ilias to force the ball out in the full and really sort of arrest any sort of game-winning momentum that Souths could have built from there, because that was, on halfway, pinning the Eels down inside their 20 from there, and suddenly Souths are not just, controlling the arm wrestle, they're potentially dominating the game. So I think Hodgson had a very, very good game tonight, and that was one of a number of important plays that he made.
It wasn't that his second kick pressure that forced
Did it last week against Jamal Fogarty too. Yep.
So 2 tonight, and he got one on Fogarty last week. Now, we've had conversations. I haven't liked the pylon on Josh Hodgson because the stats that, and they even ran with it on the broadcast tonight about the points differential when Hodgson's on the field and when Brendan Hands is on the field. And we're big fans of Brendan Hands, and we've also been critical of Josh Hodgson's early season form. But when you start talking about points differential, when individual players either on or off the field, you're using team stats to describe an individual. Now, I know that's a key individual in a dummy half because the dummy half touches the ball more than anyone else. But I've said before, like last week, the 18 points that were scored either side of halftime by the Raiders had nothing to do with Josh Hodgson. And then you'd come out of tonight and you'd go, okay, look at all the points that were scored when Brendan Hands was on the field in the latter part of the game, when Parramatta was really starting to enforce their superiority. But those tough yards were done by Hodgson. Look, don't get me wrong. Brendan Hands is a very good player, and he's been an absolute breath of fresh air for the Eels. And there's probably times where I want him to play a few more minutes. But when you've got someone like him on the bench, yes, he's going to play more up-tempo. He's younger, he's faster than the current dummy half. But bringing him on and at a time when you might want to look for that advantage, it's starting to work for the Eels. I thought BA got his timing right between them tonight. Absolutely right. And if you're suggesting that BA takes Hodgson off before half time, gives Hands a stretch before on the either side of half time, and then Hodgson comes back on, you're talking about 2 interchanges there used for the one position. And I think probably it depends on how the game's going. There's an argument that could have been made for Hands starting games and Hodgson coming on from there. But I think tonight I think BA had it perfectly in his use of the interchange around those 2 players.
And I think it's me personally. I think it's been a couple of really solid games for Hodgson in a row now. Gold Coast, Canberra, and now obviously South Sydney. So I think he's warming to the task. I hope he's warming to the task, and this is indicative of a return, not necessarily to his best given both his age and injury history, but on that injury history, a reminder that he is coming back from an ACL. And like Hayes Dunster, there is an element of needing to be patient. But I suppose that the expectation on Hodgson, understandably because of the money that not like we're paying him superstar money, but he's being paid good money, and he's come here to play a core position. Fans are, I say burdening him, but it comes with the territory. They're entrusting him with a lot of responsibility. And while he did have a poor start to the season, I think he is warming to the task. And I think
I was just going to say, my greatest fear was that there was going to be a pile-on that was similar to what young Jake Arthur had, where there were games where the Eels lost and he was playing in those matches, and fans were pointing the finger at him, and it had nothing to do with him whether the team lost those games.
Mm-hmm.
And there was just piling on for the sake of piling on, right? Just hatred about it. Now, in this instance, I think there's an element of piling onto Josh Hodgson at a time where it's less relevant, because you know what? There would have been no argument about it early in the season. His form wasn't up to it. It wasn't good.
And
for all the reasons that we've discussed. But, then again, the form of other Eels players wasn't so good at different points in the early part of the season. Yet, and this is what I'm saying earlier in this podcast, I still think that we've been more consistent than we were last year.
And Josh Hodgson's numbers, when you look at him in isolation, it looks like he had a nothing burger game. 1 run for 7 metres, 0 try involvements in terms of the raw numbers, which is not true, because I had him down for at least 2 important try involvements tonight. And then he got through 24 tackles, 2 missed, 0 ineffective. So a good night in the office defensively. That is a very good night there, especially up against a team as dominant in attack as South Sydney. But yeah, once again, it's a testament to the fact that the numbers don't always reflect the impact in the game. You don't get.
Well, look, you can say the same. You can say the same there, really, about Brendan Hands, because he was very effective when he came onto the field,
Mm-hmm.
and he played that up tempo game. And when you have a look at his stats, again, it's like what is it? It's something like 9 tackles or.
One run for 7 metres, so a nice little bit of mirroring there between the two dummy halves. And then, he got through 9 tackles for 0 missed and ineffective on the first pass of the stats there. So, both dummy halves working really well in tandem there. And I actually thought they might have spent some time on the field together tonight, 60s. But they obviously wanted to get Hodgshow out of the cauldron after a very, very intense stint there. I think he went, 54 minutes? So I thought he might have tagged in at lock forward, maybe to help the big boys there, given the crisis that they were undergoing. But Brad Arthur got it right. Yeah, he got the emergency rotations right there. He got the dummy half rotation right this game. Hands came on, and his energy and freshness was able to stifle any potential South Sydney comeback.
Yeah, and it might well be that next week, how timely might it be that Offengowi's...
Yeah, well, assuming, knock on wood that the Tigers don't botch this by getting him hurt this week, but assuming that he's fit and can come over to Parramatta, he's getting jettisoned into this team ASAP.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we know we're definitely going to be missing Andrew Davey. We don't know the extent.
Mandatory 11-day stand down there at the very minimum.
Yep, we don't know the extent of the injury to Ryan Madison.
We don't. So calf injuries are really good news, though.
No, they're really good news. We've already got RCG out and Sean Lane out. So, and if Junior's selected in Origin,
he sits out.
Yes,
because it's a preparatory week for Origin, so he's going to miss the game. He can't back up when you're in camp.
Yeah. So, what do we have? Do we have Offengowi comes in and is a starting prop?
I'd say so.
Immediately.
So Woody is your number one prop next week.
Yes.
Woody comes in and he's your number one starter. You probably pair him with Makatoa as the workhorse. Or
now I don't want to alarm you, but what's the odds that Hop could get selected for Queensland?
We didn't do his chances any disservices tonight.
No, so I mean, if he gets selected and Junior gets selected, are we literally running out a pack that was almost the New South Wales Cup pack not too long ago?
Sans Bryce Cartwright, I think you might be correct, and plus Joe, assuming that he gets through unscathed, it actually might be the New South Wales Cup pack. Yeah, I'm thinking because you're missing your back rowers except for Cardi and Woody, obviously. and after that, it's all your reserve graders. God. So, yeah, life comes at you fast in rugby league, doesn't it?
It does, and we have to hope that the North Queensland Cowboys end up with an absolute slew of players selected for Queensland. So,
Well, looking at their team, Valentine's almost a shoo-in, right?
Yeah.
So you got Valentine, Murray Talangi is an outsider. Dearden played for him last year, but I don't think he'll be. That was in a bit of a injury or suspension crisis. Cohen Hess. Heelan Lukey's been talked up as an outsider. Ruben Cotter will play.
Yeah.
So they'll be missing a few players.
Yeah. I'm gonna suggest 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But we can't afford 2.
No.
I hope that Brad Fittler just gives Junior the cold shoulder.
He won't, because he loves Junior, unfortunately. It's the one eel he actually likes. So, yeah, we're going to be doing it tough next week.
Yeah, absolutely. So, mate, I'm not going to say I'm in a state of shock about tonight's result, but I think it was our most complete performance of the season tonight in a match where we were missing so many and had such adversity. We produced our most complete performance of the year.
It's interesting because there could be an argument for the Penrith game being a more complete team performance insofar as 95% completion rate. That stuff is, close to perfect, or as close as you're going to get, especially when taking on a team like Penrith. But given the context of the game tonight, given the history between these two teams in the last 3 seasons, and given the 2 injuries that you sustained in the game, it's hard to go past that 60s. I think this was a wonderful, wonderful team win. It's not one to plant the flag on just yet.
No,
it could be. It could be the rallying point for the Parramatta Eels.
Yeah, look, there's a wise fella who said to me, and I've used this before, I've stolen it from him, said, it's not a matter of you're only as good as your last game, you're only as good as your next game. So the Eels are going to have to find something next week to be able to back up this performance tonight. It's probably one that fans mark down as a game that the Eels weren't expected to win. So you'd almost say that it's a bonus 2 points that the Eels have collected. It's strange today, mate, because I made a phone call to someone and I said, look, I need you to tell me if I'm crazy or not, because I actually think we're going to win this game tonight. And he said, look, I reckon we're going to give a good account of ourselves. You're not crazy. And
that's what we spoke about in the preview, was so many of these last 6 games prior to this one, obviously the 6 that we lost, had been over in the opening 15, 20 minutes because Souths had a torrential downpour of possession, and they just convert that into points so effectively in a given game, but especially against Parramatta. And it would have been just nice to see how we could go if we get our feet planted, get in the contest. And that's what we saw tonight. And the Eels just took it and ran with it. And even when they blinked momentarily early in the second half, they found the resolve to turn the tides. So very, very impressed with the team here. A little bit of intel, by the way, coming out of the post-game interviews. I think Bryce Cartwright's given some good goss on the return of a certain prop forward, saying that Reagan Campbell-Gillard's targeting the week after the bye. So we travel back home to CommBank Stadium next week to take on the Cowboys in the same time slot, 8 o'clock p.m. Friday night. We then get the round.
Wasn't the time frame, we were told, somewhere in that 6-week mark? I mean, that's pretty close to that, the week after.
The window was pretty big initially. It was like anywhere between like 4 to 10, depending on the severity. Groins, being groins, and Reg having a history there. So it looks like he sort of hit that midterm schedule. So we host the Cowboys, have the bye, come out of that, and go to Accor Stadium to take on the Bulldogs. And that's where Reg, knock on wood, should be back. So big game next week to get through 60s. Very, very big game.
Well, just looking at him running, I think he will be back for that game. Let's hope that that assessment of 3 weeks away
Yes, effectively 3 weeks away. Yeah,
is spot on. Look, the other thing too in the preview we talked about looking at the lineups that we thought there was a chance for the Eels to win the middle tonight.
well, on paper we've said that the Eels should be able to do it, and just in other games they haven't. In this one they aimed up, and they really stifled Cameron Murray and Damien Cook. They gave them no platform to attack the Eels getting downhill and in behind the ruck with. And yeah, South Sydney, it really took away any impetus for, in particular, Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell. They were non-factors outside of that try before half-time.
Yes. Yeah.
And speaking of Cody Walker, it was good to see the facade drop when South got beaten and beaten well. The grubbery started coming out at the end there, and I think our boys relished it too. They enjoyed seeing the antics come out because it meant that they got him good.
Yeah, there's less smiles, isn't there, when you're getting beaten? So, what is it? The old winners can laugh and losers can please themselves. So, it was a fantastic result. We're probably now at the point where we have to try to work out a 3-2-1. So, what's your 3, mate?
Man, it's one of those ones where it feels like you're doing an honest discredit to I'll say 16 blokes, given that that's not a knock on Davey. He got, unfortunately, ruled out of the game very, very early on. It's a, disservice to the 16 blokes, including Maddo, who busted their tails for this one. But 3 points, my goodness. If I wanted to cheat, I could point to Mitchell Moses and say, my pre-game prediction was we needed Moses to come in and shine. And really, he did. Just classic Mitchell Moses game. Kicked the Rabbitohs to death, pinned them in their own box every set. Was clinical in maximising his attacking opportunities. Set up Sean Russell beautifully. Set up Paul Penasini. Set up Bryce Cartwright. They were all really classic Mitchell Moses halfback try assists right there. But in terms of impact on the game, and just the way that South didn't really have an answer for him, I think Dylan Brown was the best on field in this one. Yeah,
look, there's so many good contributors that I feel like we didn't mention Cardi, and I thought Cardi had an outstanding.
Cardi killed it. Yeah. Again, the numbers aren't gaudy. He just right now he's a tick under 100 metres from 11 carries, and he's down for 26 tackles, 3 missed, 2 ineffective. But he threatened South Sydney massively. There was a couple of those ranging runs. His off-the-ball work is superb. That's one thing I've noticed with Cartwright is he will promote the ball, he'll pass the ball, he'll move it, but then he's always in motion to then back it up. He'll be wrapping around and be pushing up after making the pass or the offload. He's always in motion. Big ball of energy there, so he had a very good game.
Yeah, but I've got to give 3 points to someone, and oh man, I think I can't go past Dylan Brown either. I want to give it to one of the big boys.
It's the chicken and the egg situation here, isn't it? Because without the big boys absolutely breaking their backs in this game, you're not getting those opportunities for Dylan and Moses to shine and ice it. But by the same token, because they get the chance to shine, they're the ones that tend to get the big points. And I imagine that they'll both rake in the Dally M points this week at the expense of their workhorses in the middle.
Yeah, I feel like I want to give 2 points to their forward Junior. I've got to give 2 points to Junior, and then then becomes really, really challenging because I want to give a point to Wiramu.
Woody, Hodgson, Simonson. We mentioned Cardi just then. Moses.
And I'm not, and here's me not giving a point to Moses. I just don't know. I just feel like we won the middle so well, and I'm not mentioning Hopgood.
Yeah, who was electric Hopgood in his first stint before getting bundled out to that left edge to do triage, in the big reshuffle or the double reshuffle that we had in that forward crisis. So, yeah, Hoppy was fantastic in that first stint. South Sydney had no answer to him. His offloads were killing them.
So, look, I guess we have to. So, just to recap, I'll go Dylan Brown 3 and the 2 starting props, Junior 2 and Wiramu 1.
I like that. Whew. Jeez. So I'm going to go deal bags for the 3, like I said. Man, it feels like I want to give both the props like the 2 points and then give someone else the 1 point, but that's cheating. I think Woody had the more consistent game, but Junior's second half was super, super important. So I don't know how that factors in voting, but that's just, my take on it. And I think Josh Hodgson deserves a point. So I don't know how to split the 3 of them.
You got to make a call, mate. I had to make the call. Come on.
Well, you know what? Being a captain means that you get lumped with shit. So, Junes, I'm sorry, as a co-captain, you're going to miss out this week. And that's no disrespect on you. But like coaches, when the winning is good, everyone else gets the praise. And when the losing's bad, you're the one in the firing line. So, I'll give you those sort of leadership daps there and move you out of the points. Woody 2, Hodgson 1.
Mate, there we go. The first points to Josh Hodgson for the year. You may not get many people agreeing with you, but mate, I'll back you up there. I'll back you up and say good call. Good call. So onwards and upwards. That's an instant reaction that we've been waiting to have. It's been too long since the last really positive one, which I think was against the Knights when we were doing that live.
And even that one was an odd one given the nature of that game. So our best since the Penrith game, I think, in terms of a complete team performance and one they need to build on now against the North Queensland Cowboys.
Yeah, so we've got North Queensland coming up on Friday night this coming week. We'll be at Parramatta Eels for the post-match. And, mate, until then, go you Eels.
Yes, sir. Catch you guys in the next episode.